Nearly at the end of the year, and with that we have deadlines. One of them for Emiratisation targets for certain companies in the private sector. The Ministry of Human Resources and Emiratisation has been warning companies of their responsibilities and the numbers that they need to hit before the end of the year. Talib Hashim is Managing Director of TBH Advisory and founder of Milas.com. Morning, Talib. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely to speak to you
all.
again.
Lovely to speak to you again, and during my local break, but it's always a pleasure to speak to both of you.
Well, it is very sporting for you to be awake and talking to us. You might be having a break, but companies certainly should be keeping that deadline in mind. Tell us what they need to hit by the end of December.
Well, companies have to hit their yearly targets of 2%. So this year, we stand at around 6%. Next year is 8%. And the deadline for 2026 is 10%. So they have to reach these targets by 31st of December. Otherwise, they will be receiving a letter from the MoHRE encouraging them or inviting them to pay financial contributions that amount to up to 96,000 dirhams per Emirati employee not employed. So that is where we stand, and it's a busy time for a lot of companies.
Yeah, look, I'm sure it is. This is private sector companies with more than 50 or more employees, but certain companies that have between 20 and 49 in different sectors that are fast growing are also covered by Emiratisation targets.
Yes.
What do you see, Talib? I mean, you are a man with a lot of visibility into what's happening with companies and a lot of visibility into what's happening with hiring, HR, recruitment. First off, are companies hitting these targets?
Well, some companies are hitting their targets. What I'm seeing, some general observations. One, there is a very interesting dynamic, and it can be challenging for both sides, for employers as well as for job seekers. For employers, a lot of companies, I would say a good number of companies are hitting their targets. And then you have the other part of the companies who are struggling to hit their targets. And there are challenges we can talk about later. And then you have companies that are either unaware that they are included within the target, especially the companies that are within the 20 to 49 employee category. We've received a lot of calls from these companies coming around to November to December. We actually are still helping, my team are still working with companies until today to help them achieve their targets. And these are especially the small SME businesses that are between 20 to 49. So there are challenges there. There's a little bit of resistance, which I'd like to highlight from certain employers. Sometimes it could be due to general lack of awareness, stereotypes and perceptions, and fear. Also on the job seeker side, there's also an interesting dynamic. While we've had a lot of UAE nationals now come to terms and actually embrace the fact that they have a career in the private sector, MoHRE came out and announced that there are 124,000 Emiratis currently employed in the private sector. Remember, when we first started this and the initiative in NAFIS, we're a little bit less than 30,000 employees working in the private sector, so 124,000. But with job seekers, there's also this general lack of understanding of the private sector, salary expectations that are not necessarily realistic, and a challenging salary benchmark. I would like to highlight that. So the salary expectation of nationals when we first started this year is significantly different from the salary expectation nationals have towards the last quarter of the year. Okay. And a lot of employers don't understand that.
Okay, right. Talib, there is a lot to, as one of our guests said recently, double click on there. Let's start with the salary expectations. Let's go into detail. What were you seeing? What are you seeing?
Well, what I am seeing is the salary expectation. So when we first started this year, it wasn't really a challenge to find UAE national fresh graduates, bachelor degree holders would have set the salary from 10 to 13,000 dirhams. That excludes NAFIS, and you would even find UAE national fresh graduates who would accept salaries of 8,500 dirhams. Now, towards the end of the year, that salary expectation has increased to no less than 14,000 to 15,000 dirhams, and in certain sectors, especially finance and banking, the salary expectation is really, because of the high competition, you have fresh graduate with zero experience expecting around 17,000 to 22,000 dirhams. And that is with excluding NAFIS. NAFIS is the government subsidies that goes to UAE nationals.
Okay.
So that is how dynamic it is.
Talk to me. Is that due to rising cost of living? Is that due to, as you suggest a little bit there, some supply and demand? What's your feeling?
Yes. I think it is supply and demand. Yes, rising cost of living has always been there. Among the UAE nationals, again, a lot of the private sector employers are not in touch with the conversation that's happening among UAE nationals in the social circles or in social media. So a lot of UAE nationals haven't been satisfied with the low salaries that were offered after NAFIS was introduced because of high cost of living. And they felt that employers were taking advantage of the salary subsidies. But with supply and demand competition, the government not budging on the Emiratisation quotas and the penalties, we see a bit of competition right now. And you have a price war, so to speak, or salary war that is going, especially in the banking and finance sector, I might say.
You say that there's a price war. Does that suggest that employers are willing and able to pay it?
Yes, I believe, my personal observation, I believe employers, not all of them, but there are employers are willing to pay. Because what we've seen is employers would have a certain budget for a position, but then because of the subsidies that are paid by NAFIS, what they would try to do, and I'm not generalizing, but this is a practice that is there, the employers would try their luck by reducing the salary that they would offer, and then looking at maybe NAFIS covering the rest. So some employers are able and some employers are struggling to actually pay the salaries.
What's the answer?
The answer, I would think it would be a challenge for the SME sector, especially for 20 to 49 employees. I think it will be a big challenge for them to pay the salaries that are there. But the medium-sized, large multinationals, I think they are able to pay those salaries. And unfortunately, because everyone is playing on the same level playing field, SMEs and large multinationals, the SME sector will have to struggle to, keep up with the salaries that are offered by large multinationals. That is not necessarily the case with the banking and finance sector, I might say. It's a bit more structured, more regulated, and the quotas there are slightly different.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Some frank chat coming from Talib Hashim. He is the Managing Director of TBH Advisory. He's the founder of Milas.com. He's actually on his holidays at the moment, so we appreciate him joining us this morning. Thank you, Talib. It's always good to speak to you.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.